This is tight zone versus an even front. Tight zone for us is a 2-3 concept. So if we're running 4-12, 4-13, that means that we're running tight zone out of a one back type of set. If we ran 0-12, 0-13, it means we're running tight zone with a read on the backside. 4-22, 4-23 is split zone. 0-22, 0-23 is split zone read. 4-32, 4-33 is lead tight zone. 0-32, 0-33 would be lead read tight zone. So versus an even front, the concept we use is Gucci, Gucci. The G stands for gap, both U and the ball. The U is for uncovered, the C is for covered. So whether you're uncovered with nobody in your gap or you're covered with somebody in your gap, the C, second C is for cluster, who it is that you're working with if you are working with anybody, and the I is for ID as far as which linebacker the center is working to. So gap, what it is you are responsible for. So this would be 4-13 force here. It could potentially be 0-13. So you understand that 3 is going to the left, so everybody's got their gap to the left. Gap as far as where the ball's at. You have to understand where we expect the ball carrier to hit it. We expect the ball carrier in tight zone to run up the crack of the center. It could be a little bit wider of the center. It could be a little bit behind the center, but this is a general area we're expecting the ball carrier to hit. Nobody's allowed to be in that area unless you've got upfield movement. Uncovered. Uncovered means there's nobody in our gap. So we are running the ball to the left. So our center has nobody in his gap. Our right tackle has nobody in his gap. Again, we're running 4-12. So now this means we're covered. We're running to the left. Our left tackle has somebody in his gap, so he's covered. Same thing for the left guard. He's covered. And our right guard is covered because there's somebody in his gap. So uncovered or covered. Clusters. Talk about who it is we're working with. We're running tight zone versus an even front. Generally, the play side tackle is on his own. Sometimes he's working with a tight end. The play side guard and center are working together in a cluster, and the backside guard and backside tackle are working together in a cluster. We name these clusters basic terms. So a play side guard center cluster in tight zone is called a SIG, C-I-G. There's both a C and a G in it, and the I means that it is an inside type of run. On the backside guard tackle cluster is called a sting. All of our backside clusters begin with the letter S. There's a T and a G in this for a tackling guard, and also an I for being an inside play. So again, our clusters, tight zone with the play side guard center is called a SIG, and the backside guard and backside tackle is called a sting. Now, there's a couple different ways those doubles can be run. So if we run a zone double, that means that the cluster's working together, that the guy that they're working to is not in between them. So we've got a 3 technique here. They're working to the left. He's not in between the guys in the cluster. This is called a cage. You could call it a SIG, or you could call it a cage. When you're up there communicating, it's a matter of this is a little bit more descriptive. The SIG can also hide our terminology. On the backside, again, this is a sting, but because it's a zone double, because he's not in between us, we would call that a stranger. You call that a sting or a stranger. If you want to get more descriptive, you call it a stranger. ID. When their center ID is a mic in tight zone, it's the furthest backer in the box of the front side. So this is the furthest backer in the box of the front side. That's who we declare. If for some reason we had backer 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you declare the furthest backer in the box, which would be backer 1. But this is the only backer, so the center would come up in this situation. He would come up. He would say even for the front. You would say SIG to this linebacker. If you wanted to get more descriptive, you could say even cage to this linebacker. The backside guard and backside tackle work to the next backer back, and here they would say sting to this linebacker. If they want to get more descriptive, they would say stranger to this linebacker. Versus a 3 technique. Go through the whole thing again. Okay. Already understood gap. We already understood uncovered. We already talked about covered. We talked about the clusters. Okay. We talked about the ID. Okay. So if we're breaking all this thing down, we also talked about where the back's going. So this here is 4-13. So the center would come up here. You would say SIG to backer 1. The backside guard and backside tackle would say sting to backer number 2, or whatever their jersey number is, and the play side tackle is going to run a displace, and the ball is going up the crack of the center. So if we work this left to right, main thing here by the left tackle, okay, because the ball's going here, we've already won by alignment. We don't have to get wide on this thing. So what we're going to try to do is we're just talking about displacing. We want to take our play side hand and put it in the middle of his chest. We want to take our backside hand and put it in his armpit. We want to keep our eyes and inside leverage on the guy. And all we have to do here is create a stalemate, always understanding that this guy, once you're trying to displace him, he's going to try to fall back inside. So you have to be strong with your right hand and keep him from coming inside. The place I guard the center, like we already said, they're running a SIG here. The ball's going up, the center's cracked. Now, when we're running the SIG, the guard has inside help with the slant, but that doesn't mean that we want to run way out here. Because the ball's going inside, the place I guard wants to go right through the inside eye of the place I guard. His left hand should be in the middle of the chest. His right hand should be up into the armpit, and he should be looking to displace. If this guy falls back inside, then fine, he has help. If not, then he can just displace him. The worst thing you can do here on a SIG by the place I guard or a cage is to go wide. Now the center's got to stay under hip, and the place side linebacker can play underneath. So you're at the place I guard. First step, set your hips. Get your second step in the grounds. Uppercut. Fight to keep your eyes to the inside because, again, this defender is going to try to fall back to the inside. Our center, when he is running the SIG or the cage, his first step, he's expecting something to slant into his gap. If something shows, he takes it. If nothing shows, he wants to retrace back to the inside number of the declared linebacker. If we drift, this guy's going to play back underneath because, again, the ball carrier is going here. So when we step, we want to retrace to keep leverage on the initial landmark where the back's going. On the backside, we're running the sting to this linebacker. We already know the bell's going here. So our backside guard here is behind the play. So that means he has to win on the front side. So his first step is to set his hips, and he has to get his helmet to the front side. His helmet goes front side. His second step is going to go middle of the crotch. He's an uppercut with his backside hand. So we want to gain ground into this and uppercut. Our backside tackle is going to step over the pipe, get his hip set, and then we want to crush this. If there's any color there, we're going to clean it and climb. If there's no color, there's nothing showing, now we can climb. But again, uncovered linemen when we're running zone doubles should always be expecting the guy to go into their gap. So their backside guard here, he wins. That's what we want. We want to give color so the backside tackle can clean it and climb. As the tackle climbs, now it's understanding again, the ball is right here on the hash. That's right about where the back should be going. So we're getting past that spot. Our tackle's right on the guy, so this is our landmark. So in this situation here, if we're reading it, that's the quarterback's job to read it and pull it. Or it'd be running a team concept like 413 and having a guy block here on the backside somehow. One more time without me talking. 413. Okay, so in this look here, we are running, I believe we're running 412. So in 412, again, we've got the gap because we're going to the right. We understand the ball's going into this gap, into that area. We talked about uncovered, which would be the center and backside tackle because there's nobody in the gap. Play side tackle, play side guard, backside guard are covered up. The clusters are play side tackle, play side guard and center, backside guard, backside tackle. And the ID is the furthest backer in the box, which is this guy. So if we're looking at our right tackle, his job is to be to displace. We need to get his right hand in the middle of the chest. His left hand isn't bad here. One thing we talk about is if this guy's standing up, we'll jump set him like we would do in pass pro. We want to get into that defender and get him. You don't have to get him way off the spot, but you always got to understand this guy's going to try to play back inside. The only thing I'd say here is need to do a better job with the right hand. Our play side guard, it's a tight three technique. So all he has to do is pick up his foot and put it down because the ball's going here to get his eye right through that inside eye. Uppercut it, keep your eyes to the inside so you can see right here. We got one stripe. We want our stripe inside of his stripe. So our stripe's inside of his. We got to be able to keep that leverage and understand he's going to try to fall back in. So you got to have a strong inside arm again. Our center is too wide here. Need a better snap as well. But one step, if we see no color, it should be one hand and climb and retrace to the inside number because, again, we're running the ball right up the hash based on your initial alignment. Backside, because we're behind the play, our stripe has to get front side. So we step over the pipe to get our hip step. Our second step goes in the middle of the crotch, and we uppercut our backside hand to lift that guy. Need to be a little bit better on our takeoff here, but I like where the hat's at. The second step is slow, so there's no power there, but I like where the hat's at. Backside tackle needs to make sure he's over the pipe. Okay, we're not over the pipe here. We're stepping underneath our stuff. If we get over the pipe, we get our hip set. The second part is, that I missed before, a target for our backside tackles. We're always aiming at the backside armpit of the guard. If we're at the backside armpit of the guard, we can clean stuff out better. But one thing he does do a decent job of, besides his footwork, is he cleans it. and he climbs. Now it's a matter of fighting back into the tight end here to be able to hold that leverage. You can see where the ball is going is right up the hash. Okay, we took it past it. That's where it is. Back, got to be able to run through it. Tight end's got to be able to cut it off or wash it. And one more time, 4-12. Okay, this is 4-13. Going against an even front versus a 3 technique. So again, gap. Uncovered would be the center and backside tackle in this picture. Covered would be play side tackle, play side guard, center because there's somebody in their gap. The cluster is play side guard and center, backside guard, backside tackle. The ID is the furthest backer in the box. So in this situation, our center would come up and he would say SIG to this linebacker, whatever his jersey number is. The backside guard, backside tackle would say sting to this backer. Again, SIG or cage, or it could end up being a sting or a stranger. Play side tackles displacing, back still going up the crack of the center. So if we're looking at the play side tackle here, you got a wide technique, jump setting. So you can get your hips back up underneath. We lost leverage. We're way too wide here. There's no reason for us to be that wide. Our play side guard is going left, right. His stripe is good, and it's inside the 3, but you can see his left hand is too wide, and his right hand kind of misses the armpit. Our center, he takes one step, but I want to see his eyes look at the 3 technique. And then on this situation, step, retrace because the ball is going here. There's no reason for us to drift in this situation. Our backside guard's behind the play, so our stripe's got to get inside of his stripe. Get over the pipe, bring your second step. The second step is great, but the stripe's in the wrong spot. You got all your help behind you, sell out to this block. Our backside tackle is somewhat over the pipe. He's a little high, but if he sees color, we want to clean it and climb. Might have chased it a little bit here, but he does a good job of cleaning it. And then he fits up the linebacker, so we got a big seam here. This is actually 0-13. It's the quarterback's job to read this guy. If we don't like that, then we can block it with the tight end or do some other stuff. Okay, this is, I believe that we're running 4-32 here. Okay, so 32 means it's a lead zone concept. Doesn't change much in the split backer box like this. So in this situation, our center would come up and he would say SIG to here. We would run a sting to there. Our backside tight end's cutting off and our play side tackle's displacing. That would be 4-32. If for some reason we had stacked backers, backer 1, backer 2, and backer 3, when we're running a 30 concept, okay, we're going to leave that wide linebacker for the insert. So if we had this look here, our center would actually come up and he would say SIG to 2, our play side tackle displace, our backside tackle, backside guard would go to number 1. Actually, he'd say stack and he'd go SIG to 2, which would leave our fullback on this number 3 over here. But this is 4-32. Main thing we're looking at on this is play side tackle. He's a wide technique, get out and jumping. Good job by the right tackle over here. Our right guard, we've already got a wide technique. Keep your stripe inside of his stripe. Good right hand. Keep the left hand up and underneath. Good job walking him back, but always understand he's going to try to play back inside. Our center is taking one step. Now, retrace. Right, we're doing here is we're starting to drift a little bit, and we're allowing him to fall back inside. Again, this is where we're running it, and that's where our leverage has got to be. Our backside guard does a great job getting a stripe over here, but you can see the second step's got to gain a little bit more ground. Good uppercut. Backside tackle, get over the pipe cleaner. You see color, clean it. Here our target, again, should be backside armpit. So we didn't do a great job of getting to our target. Clean it, and then look to climb. Now, it doesn't help us to climb up to a linebacker if the gap isn't cleaned out on this one here. Now versus a G. So this would be us running 4-12 or 4-22. I believe this is 4-22. So again, split zone means the fullback's going back, which usually means the linebackers may play back as well. So if we're running 4-22, it would be the same deal. It's a 2-3 concept to the right. So the center, you know, same deal. We got gap. It doesn't change for us at all. We've got uncovered. This situation would be both guards because there's nobody in the gap. The covered guys are our play side tackle, our center, and our backside tackle. The clusters are play side guard, center still, backside guard, backside tackle still. And the ID is the furthest backer in the box. That doesn't change. Now, when we're running a SIG with the player in between us like this, so a G or a 3, okay, you can still say SIG, but if you want to get more defined, we call that a chug, C-U-G. So that is a hard double, physical double. We want to block this guy with the defensive tackle. Okay, this now is sting is now a stagger. We want to block this guy with the 3 technique and put him into his lap. Play side tackle doesn't change nothing. So in this situation, we're running 422. Center comes up, he says sig or chug to 10. Backside tackle, backside guard, get next guy back. So they say sting or stagger to number 2. Play side tackle is displaced. So if we watch our right tackle, we got a stand-up defensive end. He's got some width. Go out and jump him. Okay, get that right hand by our right tackle, try to get it up into the armpit. Our right guard, this is where it changes up a little bit. So generally speaking, when we're running zone concepts, everybody's first step is with their play side foot. The only time that changes is when we're running a chug. So when we run a chug, we want to lead with our inside foot, and we want to attack this guy as much as we possibly can. So our right guard's going to try to lead with his inside foot. Now we get a little bit of a slant nose here, but he wants to hit this guy and dent him back. It's his responsibility to stop penetration. Our center's job is to step over the pipe and maul the nose guard like a grizzly bear and push him second level. The center should not even be looking at this linebacker. His whole focus is the man in the gap. So we want to take this guy to the second level. So if we're looking at this chug, the footwork's clean, we get a little bit of a slant, but when we're running a chug, this guy's butt should be launched backwards. Same thing when we're running a stagger, he should be launched backwards. So going back to the chug again, not bad by the guard. Center always expect a little bit of a slant. Our backside guard's too slow off the ball. So when we run the stagger, we talk about vertical entry. So we want our first step, number 1, our split should be a little bit bigger. It should be a 2-foot split because we don't have a shade. We don't have a shade inside of us. So we should have a 2-split split. But our first step, we want to get vertical entry. We want to get our hips from here to here. If you try to step back and hit this, you're usually going to get crushed back into the gap. We want to gain ground and get vertical into this double team or this stagger. If we step back, it makes it hard for us. So any type of step back, you're going to put yourself in a bad spot. Backside tackles over the pipe. Your target is backside armpit and crush the 3 technique. I don't care about this linebacker if there's still color in the gap. So again, we want to crush that 3, knock a little bit more vertical. We got displacement, but we can do better than that. The back is hitting somewhere in this region up the center's crack, and you can see on this one, he actually goes a little bit wider. But it's a matter of finishing with leverage on your defender. Let's check this out from the wide angle. The ball here is on the 35. We're running a chug and a stagger. We should be displacing these guys off the line of scrimmage. So if you see here on the stagger, it's not bad here with the backside tackle guard. We get displacement on that 3 technique of about 2.5, 3 yards. Our right guard and center, their displacement is about 1.5 yards. Anytime you can reset the line of scrimmage vertically, it helps the back tremendously. So right here, we're looking at 412. It's actually probably 432. Backers are split, so it's not a big deal. So our right tackle, we got a wide alignment. The only thing I'd say with our right tackle is his right hand is too wide. It needs to be middle of the chest. He's got a decent job of understanding having a strong inside arm. Our play side guard, you can see his first step is just flat. We actually want to launch into him. We want to gain ground in this first step and launch into that G. Good job with the hands, though. I like to see our center mauling that dude a little bit. Our defense tends to play very heavy on our guards. And so we're going to talk about that here in a second, but we want to make sure our gap is clean at center before we climb to the second level. Our backside guard, you can see again, his first step is backwards. He's gaining some ground on the second step, and he's trying to get his hat where it's supposed to be and get his hips vertical. If he gets a little bit more vertical on his first step, it makes it a lot easier. Our backside tackle, you can see, does a good job of stepping over the pipe to get his hip set. His eyes are about right in the armpit, and it's his job to crush that 3 technique and put him up into that linebacker. But the guard's job is not to move the 3. The guard's job, again, is to get his hips vertical. If his hips are vertical, that 3 technique can't make the play. So you can see, again, this is where we're expecting the ball to run is up the center's crack, just inside the hash. We are almost in that spot, but we're vertical. So what ends up happening here is our tight ends up losing the block. Otherwise, there is a huge seam here and potential if the back needs to jump it, he can end up going wide like he did there. Okay, this is 412. Okay, a little bit of jump off sides, but it's still gap, uncovered, covered, cluster and ID. The clusters are still the same. The ID is still the same. The play side tackle is working this place. He jumps off sides, so there's not a whole lot I can do about that right now. Just keep the leverage. One thing the right tackle does do a good job, if you watch his left hand, he finds that armpit. You watch the right guard. He leads with his inside foot first, but he steps in. I'd like to see it a little bit more vertical. Uppercut, get those hands inside. I don't want to see your hands from the backside edge. Now, with this one here, okay, this would normally be called a chug. But because where this linebacker's at, he's stacked to the inside, we can actually call that a cigar. And you actually need to say cigar if you're going to run a cigar. So if you're saying cigar, you're saying that the guard has got him basically man. Okay, it's the guard center's job to step vertical. He's going to step vertical and throw an inside hand, but his eyes now in the cigar, the center is staring down this dude. He's just throwing a hand and working vertical on this. The biggest deal on the cigar is the guard's got to understand the ball's going here. So he's got to win inside. If we watch the backside, this is actually a pretty good stagger. So if you watch the right guard, his first step is flat. So at least it's not back, but he does a really good job, second step, getting vertical with it. He doesn't need to lead back into it. And the backside tackle does a good job of getting over the pipe and crushing the three. So we take the three technique back on the stagger about 4 to 5 yards, and it actually runs into the linebackers. That's how we want to block linebackers, with defensive linemen. Again, this is read. This would have been actually 0-12. So the quarterback's just reading the backside. The only thing you need to understand is if we're running a zero concept, we would never solid the backside of a zero concept if we got no one to work to. All right, so a cigar again. So this is 412. It may end up being 432. No, this is 422 is what it is. So our center comes up. It's normal type of rules that we have. Okay, so you got the gap. You got the uncovered players, which is the guards in this situation. You got the covered players with the centers and the tackle. The cluster is still the same. Okay, the tackle is still displaced. And the ID is still the same for this backer in the box. He's stacked on top of us. Problem is if you run a straight up sig or chug on this guy, because he's behind, he'll have a chance of running behind it. So anytime that backer we're working to in a sig or a chug is head up on the center, we tend to call it cigar, like we drove up before. We tend to call cigar. So if we go cigar on this, that's telling our center's telling the guard that he's just giving a hand. Because the guard's job now is the guard's got him manned because the ball's going here. The guard's got to get head up to almost get his stripe to the inside. It's here, we're head up, but I'd like to see that stripe to the inside because he's going to try to play back inside. The center's job is to give one hand and work vertical and retrace to the inside number. Play side tackles, working displace. You got to get quicker off the ball, not to stay out of the stack. Backside on the stagger. We want vertical entry. First step's a little bit back, but he is trying to get vertical. He's got to get that second step going vertical instead of lateral. He is trying to get his face vertical, though. You can see the backside tackle does a good job, really good job of getting over the pipe. His landmark is almost where I want it. It could be a little bit further to the right in the armpit. And you can see on this, we crush the three. Don't worry about the linebacker. If there's a man in the gap, you crush the three. The thing that can help us here more is if our backside guard gets vertical. Again, the ball carrier is looking to go here. And this is 22, so the fullback or tight end is fitting back. Biggest thing is keeping your leverage. Now versus twos, so heads technique, where we got head up on the guards. So this would be 4-13. Nothing really changes. So you got gap, okay? You got cover, which is a play side tackle. Play side tackle and guard, or excuse me, play side guard and center are covered because it's head up and the guy's in his gap. Same thing. Everybody's covered in this situation. The cluster is still the same and the ID is still the same. The only thing that we talk about on this when we get head up technique is a play side guard can go inside footwork, but we got to go vertical, almost like board drill here. If you go lateral, this guy's going to play the backside hip and the center's going to have to stay on you forever, and this guy's going to come back underneath. There's times where we'll actually call a cigar with this, which will put the guard man on this, and the center can punch and climb. Okay, so if we watch the left tackle, okay, moving early, he's get his left hand in, his right hand lower. I'd like to see our guard, our right or left guard be more vertical instead of stepping in and work to inside leverage. Okay, center in this situation, look to punch it and climb. Our backside guard, okay, he's stepping back. I like where his hat is going in his second step. That part of it's great. I just want a better first step to gain ground. And our backside tackle is climbing to the linebacker too fast. He can fit, again, backside armpit is where a backside tackle should be. In this situation here, we'd like to see the back stay right up his track. And then keeping leverage on this. Center loses leverage because the guard gets too wide. Okay, this would be a boss situation. So here we're running 422. So if we go through our rules, we've got gap, uncovered, covered. We got the clusters are the same. The ID is the furthest backer in the box. That's actually the backer. They bossed over. So boss means backers over strong side. Okay, so they bossed over. So that's furthest backer. So in this situation, the center would call even sig to backer number one. And he'd also have to say boss. So the backside knows that they're working all the way over so that they can go to the next backer back. Play side tackle, still displace. So this is 422, right tackle, work your displace. Right hand's pretty good. It's got to be able to bend a little bit more. Right guard, work right through his face. There's no reason to call a cigar on this one. We can actually run the sig or the chug on this one and dent that thing back because there's no risk of this guy coming underneath. I'd like to see the guard press that thing a little bit more vertical and get that second step in the ground. Okay, it's the guard's job not to allow the center on a sig or a chug. The guard's got to keep it vertical. He can't allow the center to knock it sideways. And I'm not going to tell the center to go softer on it. It's the guard's job to fight against the center. Good movement on it. I'd just like to see the guard take another step. Our backside guard, okay, your track is at that linebacker. So we've got to get our hat front side and get your track on the linebacker and trust that the tackle is going to be on your hip. Tackle probably could have been over the pipe a little bit better here and understand that we're targeting backside armpit. He runs underneath. We watch everything pass, and the back is still, okay, that A gap is right here. So between the coach and the player, you can see where the back hits it is right between the coach and the player. Okay, that guy would be handled by RPO, receiver, anything else. That'd be a boss call. Versus one technique, okay? So we talked about all those clusters that we do. So in this situation, nothing, Gucci, gap, uncovered, covered. Okay, now the clusters change when the center has a nose guard touching by alignment, meaning he's a zero or a one technique front side or one technique backside. So in this situation, our center would come up, he'd say even, and then he'd end up calling actually a tiger to the furthest backer in the box. Tiger, again, that's a cluster between the play side tackle and guard. Got a T and a G and an I telling you it's an inside type of play. So the center would come up, he'd say even, tiger, and he'd call that out. Backside guard, backside tackle, know who's declared, so they're still running their sting or stagger to the backside linebacker. Back is still going up, the center's cracked. Now this tiger, because he's not between them, that means it's a zone double. So the zone double and the tiger is called a grunt. So you can say tiger or you can say grunt to this student. Play side tackle, when we're running the tiger, okay, his job is to displace the 5 technique. The only difference now is he has inside help. If we had called sig and that defensive end slanted inside, the tackle would have to stay on him. Here it's a tiger. So if he slants inside, that grunt right there just turned into what we would call a gut, which is a hard double in the tiger. Their job is to dent it backwards. The center has no help. So the center's job, because the ball's going up his crack, is we can do one of 3 things. We can go left foot, right foot, and just do a displace like the tackle would do. Okay. If he's a big dude and he's hard to move, we do a brace technique where we go one step, we catch it, and then we drive it off the ball. The third one is we influence, meaning we treat it like it's wide zone to get him running and then throw him pass. Here, this is just straight up displace. It's a good job by the center. Just understand, just like a tackle, he's going to try to fall back inside. Back gets a little wide as well. If we're looking at the sting, stagger on the backside, I'd like to see this first step more vertical by the guard. His leverage is there, just understanding where you're at compared to where the ball carrier is going to go. Backside tackle, he's short on this. Get over the pipe. If he can always counter back, you can't turn on the rockets and then go back to the front side. We got to keep our stripe here. It's right there. Got to keep pressing that so they can't go front side. So again, if they play this straight up and we're running a tiger or a grunt, he would displace. He would go one step and he would climb, just like that's a play side guard center when they're running a sig or a cage. Here he slants. So now that tiger or that grunt turns into a gut on the run. So they dent it vertical just like you'd be doing on a chug. That right there is tight zone versus shake. Now, solid. This would be us running 414. Okay, so 400 tells you it's a basic concept where we're usually blocking the backside defensive end. Okay, the 1 tells you that it is a one back type of run. Now, the 4-5 tells you that we are man on the backside. So we won't run a stink stagger over here. It means we block solid. Again, starts with an S. So in this situation, 414 is called. Okay, so again, gap, Uncovered, covered, cluster, and ID. So now what we got to understand is play side tackle. In this situation, center come up, he'd say sig to here. Backside tackle and guard, it doesn't matter because we're man on the nose, we're man on the defensive end, we're still displacing. That guy will either be red for RPO or a tight end or fullback will block it. So in this situation here, our tackle will be out. The main reason this one is on here is to see our solid. You see a sig with our right guard and center. It's kind of wide here by the center. Right guard is too wide. Now backside guard, you're solid. That means you've got this guy on your own. You want to fit it just like you're running a sting or a stranger. Your hat's got to be front side, fire the second step, and get his butt off the spot. If he goes backside, you don't have help because you're solid in your man block. Play side tackle. If he's tight, we're going to take a play side step, and we're going to go attack him. If he's wide, we're going to step right at him and jump him. So if you watch the backside guard here with the G, it's actually really good by the backside guard. His hat, his front side, uppercut is a little wide, but he's straining and he's knocking his butt off the spot. He's won that gap. Our backside tackle's got a tight 5, so he steps in, jumps it with inside leverage, just like you'd be doing on a displace. This defender here is not our responsibility. It's either quarterbacks or fullback / tight end. He's just got to read through him better than what he's doing here. Okay, this would be 4-14 again. So the center comes up. He calls a sig to that linebacker. Backside is solid. Play side tackles displacing the C gap. Wide techniques, the tackle can jump it. We're running a sig where we get a little bit of a false stepping 3. I'd like to see the guard go play side footwork here instead of inside. Center sees it. Make sure we handle that gap first before we climb, but the guard's got to be a better fit. Our backside guard, first step is great, but stripe is on the wrong side. He needs to get his helmet over here. He's straining, but second step and hat placement. Backside tackle, because he's tight, he's going to take a play side step and then go attack him. If he would have been wider, we just would have went out and jumped him. But that is solid. So all these concepts here are us running tight zone versus an even front.